Welcome to the Expansive Astrology podcast, where we look at using astrology beyond the tropes and horoscopes to tune into the natural forces around us and within us, honoring our true nature to craft our future. I'm your host, Melissa, the Self-Care Witch, and I'm here to help you meet your magic. Without further ado, let's begin this week's episode with a tarot reading for the collective. Hi, welcome back to the podcast. It's episode 35, and today I am so excited to continue talking about Capricorn with you. We're almost to the end of Capricorn season, and I hope that as much as possible, you've all been feeling empowered and like a boss over your life, and really supported by the Capricorn energy that's here. This week, we're bringing in some balance and chatting about one of Capricorn's biggest challenges, which is not being so meticulous and demanding of ourselves and others. We're going to loosen up in the ways that we parent ourselves and making sure that we are kind and effective and likable bosses to ourselves, not militant, abusive, authoritarian bosses as we move forward. And all of this is just in time for the transition into Aquarius season, which happens next week, when we are asked to really step into our authentic selves and shake things up and bring our own spin to what Capricorn has so diligently helped us to craft. Aquarius has so much to do with healing ourselves, and healing the collective. So the timing is perfect. We begin to examine how we parent ourselves, how we hold ourselves accountable, how we show up in the work we're called to be doing in the world as a way of beginning to heal old wounding, heal our relationship with productivity and rest, and healing the ways we go about managing our lives. But first things first, I have a collective tarot reading for you. You've heard me shuffling. This is a 4-card spread inspired by Lindsay Mack's Soul Check-In spread. But this is for the collective, sharing some things that are present for us, what we're learning, and what we're invited to anchor in with. Since this is a spread for the collective, take what you need and leave the rest. Not everything might resonate for you, and that's okay. And even if it isn't eerily accurate for your specific life today, I encourage you to stay open to seeing how these things may play out for you over the week to come, because if you're hearing this, I trust that you were meant to hear it. Okay, I'm liking this one today, but it might be kind of bitter medicine. Just a little bit. Present for us is the 5 of Wands, and that is supported by the Ace of Wands. So I'm going to kind of talk about these together. The suit of Wands represents fire energy. And fire energy is what gets you going? What are you passionate about? What do you spend your energy on? What gives you energy? How do you use your energy? Our fire is our passion, our creativity, projects. It's kind of like what we do in the world, how we spend our energy. And the suit of Wands, from the Ace all the way to the King, takes us on a journey of learning that, of embracing our power, learning how to use our fire, learning the different ways to use our fire. We've got Aries energy, Leo energy, and Sagittarius energy in the suit of Wands. Fire, mama. Fire. So the 5 of Wands kind of invites us to evaluate how we engage with our fire in the face of conflict, in the face of a mess. depicted in the Pamela Coleman Smith illustration are 5 people, all with 5 big old wands, all kind of like moving in different awkward clingy directions. And I always mention this. I've mentioned this on the podcast before. There's a meme that floats around sometimes that's like, when you and the gang are trying to put up the tent after the LSD already hit or something like that. And the 5 of Wands depicts like a mess, a conflict. It depicts the closet before it's cleaned out. It depicts the tent when it's still just tarps and rods or whatever you call them. How do you meet those moments when everybody is wielding a big giant wand? Everybody is kind of fire forward, and everybody's fire is kind of crossing everybody else's fire, right? How do you meet that moment? How do you use your energy? How are you informed by your fire and your passion in times of conflict? And in this card, we just get to, what's present for us this week is an invitation to empower ourselves in that, to be careful about that, to show up in a way, to use our fire and our energy in a way that we can feel proud of, in a way that honors other people's fire, taking personal responsibility for where we're waving our big ol' wand. And this could mean conflict in relationships, or it could just mean internal conflict, right? It doesn't even have to mean conflict, actually. But how are you showing up? Whether there's conflict or not, whether no matter who the conflict is with, or whether there's something going on internally, how do you engage with your fire? How do you use it? Can you show up in a more empowered, more graceful way? Can you take action in a way that is like helpful? How many times have you been in like a stressful, high pressure, like conflict or problem moment and decide to take some sort of action that seems like the thing to do to fix the damn problem, and it ends up just not being helpful at all? Making sure that if we're taking action on something, that it's actually going to be helpful and wise. Conflict doesn't mean you have to be feisty and fiery and messy, right? Conflict doesn't have to result in burnt bridges and, ash, ash and char. We can use our fire in a way that nourishes and sustains, in a way that, keeps the water boiling, keeps us warm at night, in a way that isn't destructive or damaging or terrifying. And this is something we learn from the ace all the way through, but talking about like the 2 and the 3 and the 4, I guess, from the ace on, we're like slowly gathering these wands, and in the 2 of Wands we see a person kind of standing still, almost like preparing for some sort of trip or journey or adventure. And then in the 3 of Wands, there's still now they have a 3rd wand next to them, but there's still like no movement at all. He's still just like standing there preparing for his journey. From the ace to the 5, we don't really see much movement until the 5. We really slowly learn how to use our energy, how to do this in a way that is healthy and helpful and effective, right? It takes work. It's something we all have to learn. Some of us have to learn how to really tone it back, kind of, or like contain our fire a little bit better. And some of us have to learn how to bring more fire forward at appropriate times. We all have a unique journey from the Ace to the Five and beyond. But the Five of Wands is present for us this week, supported by the Ace of Wands. And that tells me that we need to like kind of look back on what we've learned. Use that like really solid foundation that you've built on how you conserve, what you've learned about how you conserve your energy, how you use your energy, how you spend it, which battles to spend it on, right? What do you know about that, right? Like tap back in with your fire root system, if that makes sense. In the Ace, we are embodying wand energy. We are reaching out, engaging with it, working with it. And Soul Tarot, Lindsay Mack, says that really like the Ace of Wands and all of this work that I've been saying about like using your energy, how you use your fire, your passion, your creativity. Lindsay Mack specifies that really like this process is about choosing yourself, coming into like oneness, a sense of oneness with yourself, your power, reclaiming your power, prioritizing yourself and what is important to you. And this starts with the Ace of Wands. So sort of leaning back on that idea. If you were to choose yourself in every moment, what would that look like? And how can you do that even in the face of conflict in a way that isn't harmful to others? Choosing yourself, being in impeccable alignment with yourself and your fire. And that doesn't have to mean, like conflict doesn't have to mean being fiery and feisty. Choosing yourself doesn't have to mean being selfish and shitting on anybody else. Not at all. Not at all. Right? But this is kind of what we're presented with this week. And what we're learning is the Justice card. So that's kind of, that sounds a little yikes to me. Justice, and it's not like, it feels like it could be a little spicy. And I do hesitate to say that because that feels like a really like bold statement to say for the collective for an entire week, right? I always like hesitate away from saying things like that. And I think it's because, just a side note, I think it's because in my training as a counselor, making those kinds of very bold statements that are like assuming of other people, that was really trained out of me, right? So anyway, just a fun little note about my process. So I don't want to say it's going to suck, and I don't want to say that there's going to be, difficulty or that it's going to be spicy, but this is feeling spicy, and wait until I tell you our anchor. The Justice card, though, ultimately is an ally for us. It's a big support for us. It's just like it can be kind of uncomfortable on the brain. Because to me, the way I see it, the Justice card comes up and like asks us, what is the truth here? What would the judge and the jury say, presented with all of the evidence, taking opinion and desire and preference and ego and what we want to believe, taking all those things out of it, according to the divine judge and jury in the divine courtroom of the heavens. What do you need to look at? What is the truth of the matter? Is there anything that you're resisting? Right? It's getting really real with what is present and what the truth is so that we can find balance and enact change from there. Because a lot of people pull justice and think balance, right? And I think that's what justice helps us get to. But the only way we can find balance is by acknowledging where there is imbalance. And I think that that's what the Justice card helps us to do, is really look at like, where's their injustice? Where's their imbalance? How are you perpetuating that? And I always give, my personal example because it was really poignant for me at the time when I was like newly sober and dabbling with moderation and thinking that maybe moderation would work out for me. The Justice card was haunting me. I couldn't touch my deck without pulling the Justice card. And it was a not so gentle. Eventually, it didn't feel so gentle. It was a way of saying, like, you're not looking at the truth here. Like, there's imbalance here that you can change. The Justice card can be a little spicy, especially it's coming up in the spot that I always say it's where we get spicy opportunities. We're learning justice. We're learning how to bring about balance. And again, in order to do that, we have to look at where we're perpetuating imbalance. Right? It's like the only way to fully and effectively and responsibly actually bring about balance and justice. So present for us, we're asked to choose ourselves and do so in a way that is effective and helpful and graceful and respectful to others. And what we're learning is how we can bring about justice. And often how we learn that is by being faced with how we are perpetuating some sort of imbalance or injustice. Yikes. Our anchor for the week. This one I actually see as a very medicinal card, but it can kind of sometimes feel like a yikes card. It's the 9 of Swords. We see a really distressed person in the Pamela Coleman Smith illustration. They are awake in their bed. Their hands are covering their eyes. It looks like they can't sleep or like they just woke up from a nightmare or something. And there are 9 giant swords floating in the air, like above their head. The swords represent brain chemistry. There's a lot of brain chemistry going on. And the medicine in this card, what it invites us to do, what it kind of helps to shake us and wake us up from is this moment. It invites us to take our hands away from our eyes and like get out of our head. This card as an anchor is telling you, it's telling us, maybe we can't think our way out of this one. Maybe the way we're thinking about this isn't so helpful. You know what? I'm going to I'm going to ask for a kind of a secondary anchor. What should we do? So the 9 of Swords, but the 9 of Swords. All right. Okay, I love this. The 9 of Swords is like a permission slip that pull your hands away from your eyes, open your eyes, get out of your head, get out of bed. Maybe do a few stretches and make a cup of tea. Maybe phone a friend, right? If you can't think your way out of this one, maybe a friend can kind of help you out. But it's telling you to do something, right? And I asked the deck for some guidance on what to do. And we got 2 more cards that I'm just going to breeze through real fast. The Strength card and the King of Cups. The Strength card is about courage and vulnerability. It's about seeing ourselves and holding ourselves as the formidable force that we are and as the vulnerable force that we are, and also letting others do the same, right? So pull your hands away from your face. Get out of bed, get out of your head. Step out of bed and into the Strength card. See yourself. Hold yourself. Honor what's going on in your head. Let others do the same if it's safe, if you have someone. But you also don't need someone for this. And then Knight of Cups, move forward, heart first. Lead with a full heart, with an open heart. Connect to your heart, connect to what is nourishing, connect to what feels good. And that's our anchor. It's a 3-card anchor. That's a really soft, juicy, sweet ending to a rather spicy beginning. I am always interested in hearing how these land for you. Let me know what you think of this week's tarot reading. We'll see. I don't know. But now, with all of that being said, let's move into the expansive astrology for the week. Capricorn Energy. Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, and Joanna Woolfolk says, quote, "In certain ways, Saturn is an austere and strict parent that lives inside Capricorn. Essentially, you feel you can depend only on yourself. The child in you feels unworthy, and your lifelong lesson is to shed this feeling and learn to love yourself. You do not need to be your own parent who disciplines and keeps you towing the line. You yourself must allow the spontaneous part of you to play and run." Unquote. As I've spoken about so many times throughout expansive astrology, part of the work is in balancing two things: holding ourselves accountable and raising the standard for how we're showing up, and seemingly contrary to that, meeting ourselves where we are and loving ourselves even though we have work to do yet. So, how do we do this? First, let's get clear on what exactly gets in the way. Why are we so strict with ourselves? Out of fear of showing weakness? Because of hustle culture and the way the grind is idolized in our society? It's really hard to ask for or accept help because self-reliance is so idolized in our society. If you think a system of deprivation and then reward is the most effective way to create change, we tend to be really hard on ourselves because we're sold this idea of meritocracy, which makes us really hard on ourselves. Meritocracy is a political system in which economic goods and or political power are vested in individual people on the basis of talent, effort, and achievement, rather than factors such as heredity or wealth, which would imply that the most hardworking, talented, and intelligent people are the most successful. But we don't have that. And we want to prove ourselves to the world. We're still sold on that idea, even though it doesn't really exist, right? And so we want to prove ourselves to the world, but our culture doesn't work like this. And we know it doesn't work like this. And yet we still believe in the American dream. We believe that if we work hard and apply ourselves, one day we'll achieve success. And that perpetuates guilt and shame and toxic productivity. It perpetuates self-reliance and hustle culture. But think about this for yourself. When and why are you quite strict with yourself? And is it the most helpful way to be? Capricorn's energy begs the question: how do we prove ourselves to the world, and more importantly to ourselves, in a healthy way? How do we honor our innate worth in a culture that is set up in that way? How do we honor our innate worth aside from external circumstances and achievements and external validation? These are the big questions we're exploring this week. The invitation is to shift into a sense of value as you are right now, rather than placing your sense of worth on anything outside of you. How do we get there? Reparenting ourselves is a brilliant place to start. What does it mean to reparent ourselves? What does effective parenting look like? Most of us, no matter how our parents were, most of us have an idea of what effective or healthy parenting would be, right? A good parent is nurturing, supportive, provides structure, safety, security. They're encouraging. They see you, they know you, they celebrate you, right? So what does it mean to reparent yourself? It means nurturing yourself. Remembering an inner child is still very much alive within you, and they deserve to be tended to with kindness and care. Reparenting ourselves means managing our expectations of ourselves. Meeting ourselves where we are in the moment with acceptance and encouragement and love. Reparenting ourselves means allowing ourselves to play and relax. It means allowing ourselves to shut off and shut down and take a break. It means allowing ourselves to rely on others for help or to accept help. It isn't healthy to be too self-reliant. And reparenting ourselves means giving ourselves space and patience and invitations to express ourselves. So again, think about this for yourself. What does effective parenting look like for you? What did you need as a child? Whether you got it or not, can you provide that for yourself now? How can you best feel supported and encouraged to grow and expand and seek your dreams? What makes you feel comfortable and free? And how can you foster these feelings for yourself? You do not need to be your own critical, harsh parent. You can be any kind of parent you want. Don't you want to be an effective one? Speaking of parenting, let's talk about being naughty. Sometimes we just want to be bad. I call this rebellious inner child syndrome. It's a way of rebelling against outside authority. Sometimes we just want to be bad or naughty. There's a little kid in us who wants to push the boundaries, or an adolescent inside of us who doesn't need to be told what to do because they know everything already. Most people don't like being told what to do. And so we have our own mechanisms in place to rebel, even against ourselves. This is where we might sabotage ourselves or act directly against our goals. Sometimes these mechanisms may be outdated or dysfunctional or self-destructive. It is totally natural that when we hear don't do that or don't eat that or you shouldn't be doing this, that a part of us wants to rebel. Yet many of us tend to think being strict with ourselves is the best way to hold ourselves accountable. So, as adults who are choosing to parent ourselves in a more effective way, we're learning to work with ourselves and work with where we are. This will hopefully minimize some of that unhelpful rebellion. I love the sentiment that we are always all of our ages at all times. So in inner 2-year-old exists inside of you, an inner 13-year-old, an inner 50-year-old, an inner 80-year-old. I like the idea that we are all of our ages all of the time. And so sometimes we need to cater to the inner 8-year-old. That's why part of the focus for this week is to do just that. It's to laugh at ourselves and play and create a be naughty list. To intentionally loosen up. This week, explore how can you cater to your inner child's natural desire to rebel? And how can you parent yourself effectively with this in mind? I recommend making a Be Naughty menu. Just a list of things that you're willing to do that might satisfy your inner rebel. It might satisfy this part of you. And it's fun. Some examples of being quote unquote naughty might be wearing lingerie under a otherwise normal outfit, or not wearing any underwear at all. It could be having safe and consensual sex in a public place where you won't get arrested or violate anyone. Be careful. Don't be that naughty. For some, it might be indulging in an extra decadent dessert, or prank calling your spouse or your work or your mom. It could be blasting some music and jumping on the bed, or leaving the dishes for tomorrow morning. Maybe it's staying up late, or sleeping in, or hiding an ice cream bar from your kids. Anything safe to cater to your natural inner need to play and be bad and get away with it. Experiment with this. Have some fun. Just don't get yourself arrested or fired or divorced or something. How can you let your inner rebel, your inner teenager, out to play a little bit in a way that is still safe and aligned? Check in with yourself. Are you a control freak? When I'm talking about these silly, rebellious things, what's your response to that? Capricorn can be a bit of a control freak. And that can be a really helpful, wonderful talent. It can be a very empowered thing. But remember, too much control blocks innovation and opportunity. That's not what you want. So remember, part of the work this week is to harness the strengths of Capricorn while also allowing ourselves to loosen up. How do you handle obstacles and changes of plan? How do you handle it when something doesn't go right or the way you think it should? That 5 of Wands message is coming up here. How do you cope when you don't know what to expect out of a given situation, or when someone doesn't show up the way you needed or expected? There are tons of things that might make us have a deep need for control. Anxiety, fear, hypervigilance, trauma, planet Earth, and our natural brain, right? It's natural. So even here, we're asked to gently and effectively reparent ourselves with those things, through those things. We're invited to really honor those pieces of us, the pieces of us that need to be right, that need to know what's going on at any given moment. It needs to feel in control. We're honoring those needs and parenting ourselves through it. Giving a pep talk. nurturing ourselves through it, reminding ourselves that we can handle change. We can handle not knowing. We are resilient and we can go with the flow. And in fact, it's usually easier to go with the flow. And you're safe. Again, it's all about harnessing the strengths of Capricorn while also allowing ourselves to be gentle with ourselves, to loosen up, to allow ourselves to be imperfect, and to enjoy our time while being in boss mode, reaching goals, climbing mountains, and whatnot. Empowered Capricorn is determined, controlled, careful, practical, responsible, prudent, patient, strategic, disciplined, steady, ambitious. And disempowered Capricorn is controlling, cautious, inflexible, stern, untrusting of others, gloomy, intolerant, closed-minded, critical, stubborn. Balance, balance, balance. Lean into empowerment. I am always just totally in awe of the ways the seasons build upon each other. So going back a bit, Scorpio helped us let go of what wasn't for us. Sagittarius helped us tap in with our soul's calling and our wildest dreams of what could be true for our lives. And Capricorn has helped us learn how to scale those mountains and seek success. It's divine. And I'll see you next week as we enter into Aquarius season, where we'll be exploring authenticity, healing, and how showing up in the full force of who we are ultimately serves the collective. But before I go, let me make sure to remind you of your standing invitation to my next moon meetup. This one will be on Sunday the 15th, 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, here in Old Town Fort Collins, or virtually from your living room via Zoom. This time, we will be talking about the new moon in Aquarius that will be coming up. I always celebrate the new moon as a time to really close and leave behind an old cycle, and really anchoring in with and drawing down, setting intentions for the new lunar cycle, where we're pulling in, preparing to enter into and utilize Aquarius energy. And as an Aquarius myself, I sure am excited for this one. Just a quick note about my moon circles. After this one on Sunday the 15th, we will be skipping a couple of weeks and we will be resuming on February the 5th. This way, my schedule of every other Sunday will align more closely with the actual lunar event that we're going to be talking about each week. If exploring a lunar cycle ritual and connecting with a community of like-minded people is something that you're craving, what are you waiting for? I'd love to have you at one of my moon circles. You are so welcome. And if you would like to regularly attend my moon circles, consider signing up for the Meet Your Magic monthly membership, where you will get an all-access pass to all of my moon circles. If you're interested in supporting the work I'm doing here, if you're interested in supporting the podcast, this is the way to do it. For just $25 a month, you get a monthly tarot spread in your inbox, an all-access pass to all of my moon circles, and more. Sign up before the 15th to make sure you get your January tarot reading. Otherwise, I will see you on the 15th for that moon circle. Catch me on Instagram for Free Tarot Friday, and catch me here next week for episode 36 where we will be welcoming in that Aquarius energy. I can't wait. I'll see you then. And until then, take care. Bye. Now, before you go, let me keep your ear for just a moment. This week's episode is brought to you by www.theselfcarewitch.com, my bread and butter, where you can find more information on my current courses, offerings, and other fun ways to connect with myself and yourself. If you enjoyed this episode and you dig what I'm doing here, please subscribe to the podcast, rate it, and leave a review. It helps so much. And if you'd like to connect with me, head to theselfcarewitch.com. I'd truly love to hear from you. Until next time, take care.